The AHL released their schedule on Thursday afternoon, but the main question everyone has to ask themselves is, are you afraid of the big bad wolf?
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes and Chicago Wolves. I am your host, Zach Martin. I am the Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. I do some AHL coverage over at the Calder Times. I am the co-host of the Searchcast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. As you can see on the screen with me if you're on the YouTube side of things, he is back once again. It is friend of the podcast, Chicago Wolves beat writer from the Calder Times, back for his back-to-back appearances. No guest has come on since his first time, but we're glad to have him back. Andrew Rinaldi is back on the show once again. Andrew, welcome back, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to be back. Thanks again for having me.
I mean, of course. I mean, the AHL schedule just dropped the Chicago Wolves on Thursday, and I'm like, you know what? It's time to bring back an old friend of the show. Why not? We got to talk about the Chicago Wolves, and we also got to talk about Cam Abbott too, because I know I talked about him initially when the announcement got hired, but I do want to get your thoughts on Cam Abbott as well. But before we get into all that stuff with our amazing guest, Andrew Rinaldi, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONAHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So, Andrew, I have to ask you, because I love this appointment by the Hurricanes to pick Cam Abbott, coach of Rögle BK out of the Swedish Hockey League, did win the CHL for the first time with them. Basically, coached his entire career so far in Sweden, played, also coached at Vaxo Lakers as well before taking over for Rögle halfway through the season, and now his first gig in North America as a coach is with the Chicago Wolves. Like, what was your initial thoughts when you heard the announcement of Cam Abbott being the next head coach for the Chicago Wolves?
Yeah, it was. I mean, him being over there in Europe, I certainly had to dig and do a little research and in order to kind of familiarize myself with him. But all it took was a quick look at where Rögle fell over into the standings with the last couple of years in his tenure to find out, like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of playoff appearances, a lot of W's. Being from the Detroit area and a Red Wings guy, seeing Mo Seider collect the Best Defenseman award when he was over there with Rögle makes me feel pretty good for a lot of guys like maybe Scott Morrow or, Anthony Honka, a lot of good young defensive prospects that are going to be down here in Chicago. So I think there's going to be a bit of a different shift in terms of the coaching philosophy that we've seen here in Chicago the last couple of years. Obviously, last season was a bit strange there, but even comparing it with their last affiliated coach in Brock Shahan, a guy who came in through the USHL and the Chicago Steel, who's now gone on into NCAA. And I had a chat with a confidant, a friend who said he likes the hire because so I might give some Canes fans some PTSD about this prospect, but Dominic Bach was another guy over there in Rögle, and Cam Abbott pretty well diagnosed early on his issues that saw his struggles over there, and unfortunately kind of carried over into Chicago, and basically said, no, not on my team. And Ryan Warsofsky had very much the same attitude towards a certain player named Bach. So, I mean, that's obviously a very niche kind of parallel there, but I feel like Chicago's been trying to replace Warzy ever since they let him walk away to the San Jose Sharks. Well, he took the job in San Jose, and now you see he's taking the reins over there as well. So I got high hopes for Coach Abbott. Haven't had a chance to talk to him yet, but I'm hoping, I get an opportunity this summer and just kind of pick his brain and see kind of what we're looking forward to here this season.
Yeah, I know for sure. I know the Kings just had a development camp this past week, and a lot of people were saying that Abbott and Rod Brind'amour almost kind of seem like have like the same wavelength of how they want players to develop and get taught and stuff like that. And even Cam even said too that his main focus, like while the W's would be nice, his main focus is relationships and not look at just X's and O's, but like getting to know the guys, helping them develop better. And that's what, and you talked about Murray Sider. I mean, Niles Hoaglander is another guy too that played at Rolla. There's like I think it was Kings prospects or someone threw like an entire list of like current guys in the NHL organizations that were under Cam Abbott. And it's pretty, I think was it Lucas Raymond or someone else? I think it was Lucas Raymond. There was like two Red Wings that were kind of under the umbrella of Cam Abbott. So it's kind of huge for the fact that you look at his resume of current NHLers in different varieties of aspects. And now you see, okay, this guy knows how to develop guys really well, and the Hurricanes want to develop their prospects. I think you got a pretty good guy who can do it. The fact that he played in North America, also played in the Swedish Hockey League before becoming – I think Cam said it was like 18 months in between playing to coaching. And now he's back in North America for the first time in, eons? And now he's the head coach of the Chicago Wolves. I mean, like I said, it's going to be a great hire, but it's going to be very interesting, like you said, after missing the playoffs the last 2 years. Now, like it's kind of hard to predict what the future holds, but like, do you think that having a guy like Cam Abbott coming in, do you think that might help develop get the guys developed, but also might give them a shot to be like, hey, another Calder Cup appearance possibly this year?
It's tough to say, I mean, I would love it. And especially seeing, like I said, with the results I've seen over there in Rogla, they've always had a competitive team. And of course, selfishly, yes, I'd love to see Chicago go on and run it back. But it's always tough to say, and there's still so much time to roll the rosters together, see who's going to make it, who's not. Are we going to get Felix Ungersorum in Chicago? Is he going to make the team in Carolina? It's just there's so many question marks that are there, and it's a long time between now and when the playoffs start in April. But I can tell you, I feel a lot more optimistic than I did this time last year.
Yeah, well, I mean, we look at it too for the fact that with the Hurricanes did sign a lot of big name guys in their AHL roster, like Sean Walker, Shane Gostisbehere. Thank you for Shane Gostisbehere. I know you're a Red Wings guy, but thanks for Ghost back. We appreciate that. But you also look at
him.
he was great with us. But you look at the signings of like. Josiah Slavin, did play for Rockford. Now he's coming back to the Central once again after going to San Diego in the middle of the trade. So he's back in the Central now with the Wolves. Obviously, most likely than not. Riley Stillman, played for Rochester last year. He got signed as well. Good chance he's going to be in Chicago as well. Maybe Tyson Jost and Eric Robinson, who really knows? I know they, played some time with the Rochester Americans as well. But like, what are your feelings so far on? Let's just say. For right now, Josiah Slavin and Riley Stillman might be the locks for the Wolves. But like, how do you feel about those two? And maybe you also get a Robinson and a Jost. Like, well, how do you feel about that combination of veterans that have played in the AHL coming in under Abbott and hopefully, kind of guiding the prospects of the Canes, since now the Wolves are going to have all the prospects back finally for Carolina.
Yeah, those are the guys that you need to really create a winning culture and to show these guys night in, night out how to carry yourself as a player at this level and at the next level. And they're crucial to development, whether, people want to be smart on Twitter and comment who, like these are the guys that are building blocks to teaching these young kids to come up and to be better hockey players. Now, I'll say compared to the summer of 2021, when the Canes went out and got every big name veteran free agent out there, Andrew Podorowski, Josh Levo, Stefan Nason, Jalen Chatfield, Alex Lyon. I can go on and on and on about how
that's
Chicago up.
That 21-22 team was absolutely bonkers, and I don't think you're going to see a roster like that anymore because that was disgusting. How good that was.
It wasn't fair for a lot of reasons, but it's I think the message going across here. I mean, yeah, Slavin and Stillman are going to be big pieces, but I think it's pretty clear that Carolina wants the youngsters to kind of do most of the heavy lifting here. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I can say, watching Grand Rapids in the playoffs last year, they had, a ton of vets on that team between Matt Luff, Taro Hirose, Zach Aston Reese. But at the end of the day, especially in the playoffs, it was the youngsters that kind of picked that team up and pulled it through as far as they did, pushing Milwaukee to the brink. So I think you're going to have a very similar vibe in Chicago as well, where, it's great to have those guys, but it's not, I don't think it's going to be like 22 where, it's a very veteran laden lineup with some fantastic young players in there as well. And you just had the right ingredients and all you had to do was stir the pot. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun in Chicago coming up here.
Yeah, no, for sure. I know, like you said, with Felix Unger-Sorum, it's kind of it's like a 50-50 right now. Will he make it? Will he not make it? Even then, you're going to be watching Bradley Nadeau, who just absolutely torched in Maine, absolutely went off in Penticton in the BCHL, over 100 points with his brother. You're talking Jackson Blake from North Dakota. I mean, the list goes on and on. You said Scott Morrow, just dudes on dudes. And then you're talking about, the goalies and, all the guys who's picked up in the draft too. I'm curious to see how that's going to work out. I would love to see Justin Poirier come in because he absolutely smoked the Q. I would love to see him in Chicago and see what he can do with his lethal shot. But yeah, just the fact of now that Chicago's back with the Hurricanes, now you're going to see all these prospects all in one camp, like all in one group together. I envy you. It's just the fact that it's like, okay, here's all these guys you can just watch all at the same time in Chicago. So that's good. It's going to be electric. That's for sure. With all those prospects.
It's a lot of fun. I mean, again, I got the Griffins beat, but I've missed having this, it's just a different level of excitement when you have these guys that have so much potential and so much promise ahead of them. I mean, nothing against the 23-24 Wolves, I mean, there's a lot of incredible guys on that squad. It's different when it's this caliber of player coming in, and it's just that's the fact of the matter. So I'm excited. I'm pumped. October I'm enjoying the summer, not gonna lie, but I'm really looking forward to October as well.
Yeah, I don't mind the summer. I'm more of a winter fall guy myself, just being us both being from the Midwest, but the summers here in South Carolina. Oof, they are brutal. So I'm ready for October. You know what? And speaking of October, Andrew, I think it's time we do get to the Chicago Wolves schedule because we already knew who the home opener was, but the rest of the schedule came out on Thursday afternoon. But before we get into all of that, we have to talk about some amazing sponsors. So we'll get to that back. We'll talk about the schedule here in a second on a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, or is it Locked On Chicago Wolves? All right, guys, we got to talk about Game Time, and Game Time is the authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes game tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Now, the things that I like about Game Time is, like I said, you get the great last-minute deals on their tickets. You get the flash deals and their zone deals and their view seat feature on their app is absolutely amazing. It's like I said, with their last minute deals, you can actually save up to 60% off when buying for last minute tickets for sports, along with concerts, comedy theaters, and so much more. I know I speak for me and Andrew Rinaldi. If we can get 60% off tickets for Queens of the Stone Age, I'm not going to be upset about that. With their flash deals, you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats at the head of the game or event itself. So like I said, not just sports, but concerts, comedies, and so much more. With their zone deals, it's a cool thing that you can do with this is the fact that you get to choose the section, but you let the Game Time app choose the seat for you. And speaking of seats, their seat view finder feature on their app. It's a panoramic view that you get of your actual view from your seat before you buy the ticket. So you don't have to worry about obstructed views or bad angles and stuff like that. That seat viewfinder takes all of that out and just gives you what you're going to be seeing when you get to the actual event. So you know what? Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute ticket, lowest prices guaranteed. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes / Locked On Chicago Wolves, your team every day. So as I said at the end of segment 1, we are now going to into the Chicago Wolves schedule that was just announced on Thursday afternoon. And Andrew, I have to say this, I am very excited and also curious on your thoughts on the schedule as a whole, because if we look at, just first thought is, okay, you've gotten, your first game of the season, October 12th at home against Milwaukee, and then you have like a whole week off before you have a back-to-back on the road in Hershey. Like, what are your initial thoughts? Because what are your thoughts on the home opener, being against the Milwaukee Admirals, first game of the season at home?
Yeah, it's either Milwaukee or Rockford to open up with. I mean, they're the close regional rivals, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for the Griffins opener in Chicago or vice versa. It would really help me out, but it is what it is.
Right.
Historically, every time I've been to Chicago, I don't think they've won an opener since I've been on the beat. Except the Frankenstein 21 COVID season, which was in a practice ring. And I'm not exactly sure that season actually happened.
I mean,
Seth Jarvis was a Chicago Wolf, so
yeah, I'm funny enough. I have seen some Seth Jarvis Chicago Wolves jerseys, and I don't think a lot of people realize that he was a Wolf unless you really, really know about it. Yeah, he
was my first interview ever. Well, him and Phil Tomasino were, but I digress.
That's right. I forgot. Yeah, I forgot that was the year that they had to split with Nashville.
Yeah.
Oh, talk about a duo though. Seth Jarvis and Phil Tomasino. Like, okay,
that whole I can go on for days on the 21 Wolves, but I really like the fact that they got to go on the road to Hershey second week of the season. That's
for a back-to-back after a week off.
That's going to be a gut check for a lot of these young players. A nice little welcome to the AHL there. Here's the back-to-back Calder Cup champs. So
in Hershey nonetheless too. I think was it Corey from Calder Times? He even said like the first time since 2006 that the Wolves have been in Hershey. Yeah. So that is a bit.
Yeah, that's one thing I really wanted to talk about on this episode was that there's times where it can feel like you're seeing Milwaukee and Rockford 36 times a year each. It's the schedule can get kind of bland with the Wolves, and I think they've reached out here. You got Bakersfield that they don't see ever. Coachella Valley, the first time that they're ever visiting and being visited by this brand new, well, I guess not brand new anymore, but newer AHL franchise. And, that little spice of variety just adds so much more to the schedule. And I think it's good for these kids to see like, okay, here's obviously Coachella is going to be way different looking between their two-star coaches heading up to Seattle, a lot of star players that have left in that organization, but it's still got that core of what a winning franchise looks like. And I think getting them in your building, going out to see them, and just kind of it's a good measuring stick type of game, which is why I think it's really good for this young team to get up against Hershey early on. Yeah. And just kind of see like, okay, here's what champs look like. Yeah. And if you get pumped, it's not, it's early in the season. There's a lot of hockey in front of you. Here's what, here's how we measure up, and here's what we got to do. So I like that. And, I to be honest, I haven't like studied a whole lot of it. Let's looking back and forth. I like that they managed to include the Bakersfield trip in right after the All-Star break, which is in Coachella. So they don't have to go very far. They stay in the state of California for that one.
Yeah, definitely not too bad. Because you're looking at the schedule, it's kind of weird you look at it for the fact that you look at October, you have Hershey back-to-back. If you're on the YouTube version, we actually have the whole schedule up on the screen. So if you're listening to the audio version, make sure you're going to check out the YouTube version of this because we got the whole schedule put up so you can take a look at it. I like how it's Hershey back-to-back. You get 4 days off, and then you're in Milwaukee. Then you come back home to Phillies, Milwaukee again on a home and home. Then you get Iowa on a Tuesday, and then you're off until Rockford Saturday, November 2nd. Then another full week off until you get another home against Milwaukee. Again, it's and then you have 3 games in 3 days, November 15, 16, 17, but it's against 3 different teams with a road game to kick off the whole, Grand Rapids on the 15th, Manitoba, and then Rockford for 3 games in 3 days against 3 separate teams.
Welcome to the AHL.
I know it's so wild how that works out. Then, like I said, then you look at the end of November, Rockford on the road on the 29th. Then you're back up against Grand Rapids, and then you get Rockford again on December 1st. So you have a mini Rockford series with a Grand Rapids game right in the middle of it. Yeah, and people thought NHL scheduling was insane. What in the world?
Yeah. The that end of November, beginning of December stretch, you got just over a week's worth of time to get 4 games of Grand Rapids in there. So I'm gonna be busy. And
because you got Grand Rapids the 30th, and then you have a 3-game series with both of these teams from the 6th to the 8th, with another home and home. On top of a 3rd game, you have 3 games back to back with one with one of them in Grand Rapids, and then both of them the other 2 are back home in Chicago. That's it's just looking at that end of November, early December. You're like, oh my goodness gracious! Hey Andrew, I hope you enjoy writing a bunch of articles about that, about those games. My goodness,
that's the nature of the beast, man. That's the AHL in a nutshell. It's you get that Monday through Thursday off, and then it's bam, 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 right? One on top of another. But after a while, I kind of stopped asking the players, at least the older ones, like, oh, how do you guys do it? It's just that's the nature of the beast, like I said.
Right. So. Yeah, we talk about that. Like you look at the end of January, you got Rockford twice and Manitoba twice, but it's like you're on the road at Rockford, home against Manitoba on the 20th of January. Then you're going back to Rockford again 2 days later, and then you're back home again against Manitoba the next day. So you have 2 series interchanging with each other with road home with a back-to-back right before the All-Star break. So, and like you said, at least you got Bakersfield right after the All-Star break. So it's not terrible, but yeah, it's just. I want to ask you about the scheduling. I know, do you kind of wish the AHL kind of incorporate more of I know it's kind of tough to play everyone just because of money and distance traveling and stuff like that. But would you rather see a little bit more of maybe a regional thing where maybe you split the Central and here, top part of the Central, you get to go play the Atlantic and the North a lot more, and maybe the bottom half goes in, or however you want to do it. Is there a certain way you kind of wish that the AHL will kind of find a way to split up the scheduling a little bit more so you can get more teams rather than just here's your 60 games of the same division, essentially.
Right. I love how the NFL does it, and what how each division kind of shares matchups with the NFC North is playing the AFC South this year or whatever it is, and that's always been fun to me because not only are you kind of varying the opponents up, but you're also seeing how does Milwaukee do against Coachella? Well, I guess we saw that in the playoffs. How does Rockford do against Coachella or whatever it is?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, though, the realism of it is that it's just difficult for teams at this level to accommodate that sort of travel.
Yeah.
And some teams do it more than others, but I like the added variety that there's new teams on the schedule that aren't usually there, and normally you get Tucson, and it's like that's really kind of about it. You might there's less Cleveland in the schedule, but that's to accommodate getting Hershey in there as well. So I don't mind chipping away at some of the usual suspects to bring in some fresh blood, and I would like just kind of like a yearly rotation. Where, okay, we don't get Bakersfield this year, but there's Colorado. Okay, we don't get Coachella this year. Here's Ontario. Okay, we don't get Hershey this year. Here's Laval. Something like that.
Yeah, kind of having the next rotation. Okay, we don't get this specific team, but we get this specific team. Mm-hmm. Here's this North for this North, this Atlantic for this Atlantic. It would be nice to kind of do that first, just because I'm down here in South Carolina. The only team we got is Charlotte. That's the only one that's close to us. And it's like, you're maybe lucky to get anyone out. Like, you'll mostly get the North and then basically the Atlantic. And you might get the random Pacific Division or the random Central if you're lucky to get one.
Oh, trust me. Last year when Grand Rapids started off with a home and home against the Colorado Eagles, I was all over it. As soon as that schedule dropped, I got a hold of my friends in Denver, and I made a whole week out of it. So
especially with the cool sections they have at the Colorado Eagles arena. From what I heard, is supposed to be absolutely epic.
Oh yeah, I kind of it was kind of bittersweet that I had to work that evening because that Voodoo Ranger Lounge looked awesome.
It definitely does look awesome. Very underrated in terms of locations to go in for arenas on just any AHL sides. So before we get more into the schedule, there's a little bit more we got to talk about, which we'll get to here in a second. So don't go away on this edition of Locked On Hurricanes / Locked On Chicago Wolves. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes / Locked On Chicago Wolves, your team every day. So I know we kind of talked about in segment 2, Andrew, just like the overall look of the schedule, and like, we would love to see a rotation because please, I would love to see more teams because, like you said, it gets kind of bland after a while in terms of like, you got to for you. I know with the Central, look, there's Milwaukee, and then there's Iowa, and then there's Texas, and you kind of like, all right, can we change it up a little bit here? I don't want to see Rockford for the 20th time this season. So I mean, if you had to pick 3 teams that you would love to see on the schedule, even for just a game, anyone in the AHL, I'll give you anyone in the AHL, who would you love to see for at least 3 opponents on a schedule if you're able to choose?
Colorado, because I would like to be able to go back out there, go for a nice little hike before I had to come and cover the game.
And maybe it's a back-to-back. Maybe you work one game and you spend the other game in the Voodoo Lounge. How about that?
You know what? I can work with that. That's a deal. I'll take it today. Abbotsford, I think, has the cleanest aesthetic in the whole league. The jerseys, the logo, it can't be beat. And I love those fans up there. They're raucous and they make themselves known. I think those would be very fun games. And Laval, same reason I just spoke about in terms of just the fan engagement and all that. And when I went up there for the All-Star game, it really blew me away. And if I couldn't get out to Colorado, Laval would be another place I'd love to go back to. And I mean, I'm saying that because I'm getting Coachella Valley for the All-Star break, but the fans there were awesome, and it makes it feel like it's a playoff game during the regular season, and that's kind of how I would like to add some spice and some variety. I mean, I don't want to pick on anyone, but Bridgeport does nothing for me, and even though they just had announced that they got the Gordon's Fishermen coming back, that's the one game you got.
I mean, at least it's better than what it was before. I mean, it's just the poor Sound Tigers. I don't know why you get rid of that for the copycat copy and paste name, but that's a different discussion for another time.
If you're gonna add some spice, add some variety, I think you got to do it with some squads that are gonna make it feel like it's a playoff contest. When you go on a road to like a hostile environment in Abbotsford and Laval and Colorado, it just adds an extra spice there. And on top of, offering opportunities for me to go and visit and see the team on the road in awesome locations.
Yeah, for sure. What? No love for Charlotte? What, you want the
three? You gave me 3. Yeah, sure. Charlotte was number 4.
That's all. No, it's like, hey, what, you don't want the Bugberry biscuits? I understand. But yeah, no, just those venues. Hopefully, if you do go back to Laval, maybe you don't get stuck on the airplane for forever.
Well, hopefully it's not in the middle of absolute Arctic fury.
Yeah, great job to pick the most coldest place possible to do an All-Star game. But you know what? Hey, at least we got Coachella Valley, so it's going to be all right.
Yeah, I'm going to be bringing my golf clubs to that one.
I would assume nonetheless, Mr. Rinaldi. So I have to ask you. We kind of talked about just like looking at November, December, a little bit of January. It's not as insane. I have to ask you this. So how do you feel about March? Because you look at the March schedule, you got maybe 4. You have 5 road games. The rest of that month is nothing but home games. And then you look at April. I know we got like 3 weeks in April. Then we get, April and June is the playoffs. You look at April's schedule, you got 2 home games. That's it. So how do you feel like looking at March home heavy? Then you look at April, all of it's on the road. Like how do you think that's going to play into Chicago having, kind of getting used to being at home for so long, and then you have 3 weeks left in the season. You're just Grand Rapids, Manitoba, Milwaukee, and Iowa in the middle of all of that. Yeah,
I think that's if this team hopefully will be playoff bound by then, and that's gonna be a good little taste tester to be able to hit heavy on the road there, and whether they step up and grab some points, show that they're serious heading into the playoffs, or I can't do a hat trick of no playoff seasons, man. That would really break my heart. So let's hope that it's kind of the spark plug for this team getting ready for bringing postseason play back to Allstate Arena. And if not, then you got that opportunity in March to bank on a lot of points, and it's not going to be easy. I see no Iowa on the schedule in March except for 1 road game. And you got a series with Hershey and a series with Coachella. That's clearly the standard of this league for the last 2 seasons. So it's not going to be a walk in the park just because you're in friendly confines. It's hopefully going to, like I said, tune this team up and get ready for postseason action.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because you look at too, you got back-to-back to start the month of March with Texas, and then you got Texas for 2 games in 3 days on 21st to the 23rd. So yeah, there's a lot of, like you said, a lot of points to be had at Allstate. I mean, it's a fortress too. Like let's not kid ourselves. And of course, it's a hard place to play. Actually, with the probably one of the best show intros on the AHL.
That's not one of, it's the best.
All right, I was trying to be modest, but yeah, let's be honest. Let's be honest. It is the best. Yeah, so like you said, friendly confines. That place is going to be. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen Allstate not raucous. And now for the fact you got the team, the affiliations back, you're going to get a whole slew of prospects. I think coming back from last year being the 30th year, I think year 31 for the Wolves. I think we could be in for something special here, Andrew. I don't know. It's be very, very exciting for sure. But all right, so you look at the schedule now. What series are you kind of looking forward to the most? I know you're going to say Hershey, so I am taking Hershey off the board, and the Coachella Valley because, like I said, that's going to be too easy. What series are you looking forward to most out of the schedule? If we're not talking about Coachella Valley and Hershey in March.
the triple header with Grand Rapids has got to be. I was going to say that even without Hershey and Coach Alabama.
Just for the fact you just got Grand Rapids back to back games. That's just
yeah. It's not even like a thing about my two beats being together. It's if you got three stacked on top of each other, it's gonna you're gonna get really annoyed with some guys on the other team over the course of that time. So
and for the fact you start that whole shindig off with a road game in Grand Rapids, then come back for two at home back to back. And was it 6, 7, and was it 3? I think it's 3 p.m. I can't tell. I think it's 3 p.m. So you have an afternoon game on Sunday after playing the guys the night before, and after you just played them on Friday night. Yeah, I think we could see a lot of fisticuffs and a lot of why I oughtas throughout that series for sure. Hopefully, it's not that one article you had to do where it was like, I think you had 8 or something goals or some insane amount of goals that one game was.
The 8-7 game, yeah.
Oh yeah, gosh, I still don't know how you pulled that one off.
I just said both teams were bad. It's just what it was. It was terrible hockey, to be honest.
I remember we were all chatting on our group chat that night. We're like, oh, "What is this game?" And it's like, "How do I break this down?" Here's the timetable. Here's who scored at what times. I ain't talking about every goal because you probably be there for 2 weeks talking about every single one. But yeah. Hopefully we're not going to get 15 goal games for you this time. But yeah, that triple header is going to be very interesting for sure, to say the least. But I don't know. I'm excited for the Chicago Wolves. I'm glad that the affiliation's back. It's going to be fun to see how the young guys are going to do depending on who it's going to be in Chicago. Definitely for sure. I know you're going to be excited. Get to see nothing like you said. Nothing against the guys from Grimaldi and Kincaid and all those guys from last year, but. I know you got a lot of fresh new faces coming into Chicago, and it should be definitely fun season to watch for sure. I can imagine.
Oh yeah, and I believe Carolina is in on January. I forget, when does Carolina visit Chicago? I think, is it in January?
You know what? Man, you gonna put me on this? I'm gonna have to.
Oh yeah, let's take a look, just because I know that there's a lot of fans out there that try to line up a weekend where Chicago's playing at home. You can go see the young kids playing, and then you can go see the Canes playing against the Blackhawks. And it's Monday, January
20th.
Okay.
So
you got a weekend with Bakersfield for the Wolves, and then you can hit up Monday Canes and Blackhawks, and
that is it's a 7:30. It's a 7:30 start Monday night, January 20th. So you go to Bakersfield for the 3 p.m. game, or you can go for go to the whole series against Bakersfield. And you got Canes at Hawks. Why not, right? So there you go. Maybe nice little three. Hey, there's your little 3-piece Canes fans. If you want to go to Chicago, go check out the Wolves. There you got Bakersfield for a weekend, and then you get to see the Canes against the Hawks. So that would be fun for sure. But Andrew, man, thank you as always for coming on. This is always great having you on. I know it's funny the fact that you were my first guest, and then now you are back again as my first reoccurring guest in back-to-back formats. So you've been my last two guests. So what a way to kick it off, right? Just
can't wait for the hat trick.
Hey, give you that natural hattie. It's like, hey Andrew, how's the season going for the for the Chicago Wolves so far? But no, this was a lot of fun, man. I always appreciate you coming on and just to talk Wolves. And so when I saw the schedule drop, I'm like, yeah, it's time to call up my bud. Gotta call up Andrew. Gotta have to. Why not? Why not? So before we let you go, Andrew, where can people find you, and where can they find your articles to read? Because I know there's gonna be a lot of good stuff to read this season for the Chicago Wolves for sure.
Oh yeah. My work is published at thecaldertimes.com. Obviously I cover Chicago and Grand Rapids there. I also have my little Twitter handle down there. I don't care what kind of rebranding goes on. It's still Twitter. And for anyone who isn't familiar, I tweet updates to the team. I live tweet during the games, and I enjoy interacting with with fans, both trolling and otherwise. And it's, I enjoy talking hockey. I always enjoy talking hockey, the finer points of it, or, some of them might be not so finer, but it's, it's great to reach out with the fans. And when they reach out to me, I'm always happy to engage with them. So if, whether you're learning the game or you've, been born and bred in it like I have, it's always a good time for me. So if for some reason people seem to be interested in what I have to say, and then they can find me there.
Yes. Yeah, definitely make sure to give Andrew a follow on X. For those who aren't on the YouTube version, it's Andrew_Rinaldi_. Mm-hmm. Just for those who aren't, if you're, like I said, make sure to watch the YouTube version, because like I said, we have the schedule up if you want to go check that out. So really, really cool. Now for me, One True Zach on X, the podcast is _Hurricanes. If you click the link tree in my bio, you can find where to find my articles at the Hockey Writers in terms of anything Carolina Hurricanes wise, AHL, Calder Times as well. Also check out my other podcast, the Surgecast. There's a link to the podcast and the YouTube version. Along with this podcast, there is a link to find on the all podcast platforms. Make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review, because if you do, I might just read on the show. On the YouTube side of things, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell notifications so you don't miss the show. Hit the thumbs up button. Let me know if you like the show as well. In the comments section, let me know what you think of, Cam Abbott. How about him becoming the new head coach of Chicago Wolves? I know I asked this a while back, but you know what? Listen to Andrew talk. Let me know what you guys think about, what Andrew said about Cam Abbott. Also, with a lot of the prospects that are going to come to Chicago as well, hopefully next season. And let me know what you think of the schedule. What games are you looking forward to? What games would you hope in the future to see maybe the Chicago Wolves play in terms of future opponents? Who knows? But it'd be really, really cool to do. Make sure to share this podcast as well, because we want to keep this thing growing, because we are over 910 subscribers. We are on the road to 1,000. And if we get to 1,000, I might do something special for you guys. But that will wrap up this Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Hope everyone enjoyed the show. Once again, big thank you to Andrew Rinaldi for joining me today to talk to some Chicago Wolves. I hope everyone enjoyed the show. I hope everyone has a great Friday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes, but also let's go Wolves.